To make the transom frame is a little tricky, and there are a lot of good pictures out there to show for people who've made Monacos and Rivieras. They have the same transom design, I'm pretty sure. So, but this first piece here, this is one of the pieces, part of the transom, and this is a solid piece of lumber. And the way that I cut these angles is I made a jig for my table saw, and so this is some of the 3/4 ply that I bought actually for part of the boat. It's um, nice and straight. It's a Hydrotech. And then what I did is I took a piece of actually the nice lumber and I screwed it to here. And the jig, I have a miter bar that I put on there so it goes in the slot of the table saw. And then I connected this so it's at the right angle, and I made it so it's adjustable. I think at one end it's screwed in, the other end I think actually I tried to get the angle right, but then I had to fine tune it, so I slipped in some pieces of paper here just to make this angle, because this is the piece that I'm cutting, and then clamped it securely, and it made a really nice cut. Did that on both sides, and so there's that piece with another piece of lumber that goes in the slot. And the way that I cut this slot is I use my table saw again, and I just kind of shaved off a little by little. I had a miter bar, and I use that to hold it square to the blade. You need to be careful when you're doing this because the guards are not on the saw blade when you're doing this, so be really careful doing that. And then here are some other parts of the transom frame, and so this is 2 laminations, actually 2 pieces of wood, and you cut these notches out. These actually are for the bottom battens. You cut them out with a jigsaw and then kind of fine tune them and get them squared off. And then here they are where I'm actually epoxying those 2 laminations with those slots that I was just showing face down here. And so I clamp them on here to try to keep them straight as the epoxy dries. And this is showing the full transom frame, but you can't epoxy it all at once. You have to do parts of it. So I think in this picture what I'm actually epoxying is this curved frame member to the bottom member, and I think all the bottoms of these pieces to these bottom frame members. And then also I think I'm epoxying that big solid lumber piece that I had before to these members too. I think I'm doing all these at once. So that's that. And then now what I'm doing is there are those members. This is a picture from the opposite side. So now what I'm doing is I'm epoxying the opposite side of all these members to this frame member here. And this shows the finished transom frame from one side, and there you can see the notches for the bottom battens, and then the keel goes in here, and so you can kind of get a good feel for that. This piece of lumber on the bottom was just slightly short. I ran out. I didn't quite have a piece long enough, but actually it didn't matter because this gets faired in, and the shear, there are 3 laminations of shear that actually get notched in these corners, so it was fine. And this shows a picture of the completed transom frame from the opposite side. And one thing I want to make note of is if you see this curved member goes up and it goes into this is that lamination, those 2 pieces. There's actually a notch cut in that for this to fit in there. If I go back a picture, this is the other side, so there's a notch that's actually cut in there for this piece to fit right in there, because this is essentially mostly flush. So that's the transom frame.